Mr. Nichols, are we good on the back, or we need, okay, all right. All right, we're running. All right, everybody, good evening. Welcome to the Madison County Planning Commission Workshop meeting for February 18th. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. A reminder for all the Planning Commission members, microphone, please have yours turned on as we're recording. And help me keep an eye on the back computer if we do have anyone join from online, since Stacy's gone tonight. If we can we get a motion to adopt the agenda or any edits to the agenda as it's presented?
I move to adopt the minutes.
Agenda. All right, we have a motion to adopt, and it's been seconded, the agenda for tonight. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, perfect. We'll open the floor now to general public comment. This is a time not for any case-specific comment, but general public comment. Anybody? All right, seeing none. We'll go ahead and get into new business then. The first item of business is the adoption of the minutes from the February 4th, 2026 meeting. And Mr. Nichols did advise me there have been some edits since the first packet was published. So if you've read the first packet, there are some changes subsequent to that.
Mr. Chairman, if I summarize those really quick.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, we had a couple of clerical edits that were simply identifying Mr. Whitman as the current chairman, as well as updating the date which corresponds to the special use permit for Eden Ridge that was issued at the last joint meeting. We corrected the date on that, and so it was just those minor edits. They should read correct now.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
I move to adopt the minutes from February 4th as submitted.
The motion has been made and seconded to adopt the minutes from February 4th, 2026 as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, seeing none, the chairman votes aye as well. All right, we'll go into our public cases. The first one, case number SU-01-2-1, the Towers LLC special use permit. This is their second workshop. Stuart Squire has submitted an application on behalf of the Towers LLC and Madison Wood Preservers for a special use permit for a new wireless communications facility on property identified as Madison County Tax Map 48-25 in accordance with Madison County Zoning Ordinance 14-13. The property is 1.782 acres and is zoned R1. Mr. Nichols?
Mr. Chairman, there have been a couple of updates on this one. In the applicant's narrative, they changed some language to reflect the 5G use of the tower, and they did an edit to their presentation to reflect the same. The applicant is here tonight. I'm sure they'd be happy to speak if you have questions.
Perfect, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Nichols before we allow the applicant to come forward? See none. Stuart, or?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Good to see you again. My name is Lori Schweller, attorney with Williams Mullen, representing the Towers LLC for this application. And Stuart Squire is here. He is the zoning manager for this project with GD Insights. We had a presentation for you last time, which we have for you again if anybody would like to see that. But to the front of that presentation, we have added a few slides to answer a specific question that we heard at the first work session. And that question was a little bit more explanation about the 4G and 5G services being provided by the proposed facility. So I'll provide that information to you now, and then you can let me know your questions, and we'll do our best. But if we have more questions that require an RF engineer, I'll be better prepared for your hearing next month. So Verizon Wireless is licensed by the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, to provide state-of-the-art wireless telecommunication services within Madison County using a combination of many separate bands on the frequency spectrum. The 4G long-term evolution LTE service primarily operates in lower frequency bands, typically between 700 megahertz and 2.6 gigahertz. These longer wavelengths, like earlier 1G, 2G, 3G, these longer wavelengths can travel farther and penetrate buildings more easily than shorter wavelengths. The 5G nationwide Verizon Wireless service uses a broad range of frequencies, low, mid, and high band. But in Madison County, the largest 5G frequency Verizon has access to is the C-band, which is 200 megahertz of spectrum, and it is at a very high frequency, 3,700 megahertz. So these short wavelengths, they travel shorter distances. They have more trouble with obstructions, but they provide very good service. These short wavelengths allow for faster data transmission because they can carry more information per second. So this leads back to the question about the capacity we're trying to add with this additional tower between two existing towers. Because of the shorter wavelength, yes, they do need to be closer together. And so closer together than they otherwise would be. Back in the day, before we got to 4G, towers were farther apart even then than they are now. The taller towers were sometimes five miles or more apart. Now they're typically 2 to 3 miles apart. In this case, on the map you'll see that the two existing Verizon sites, one is called Shelby at the Madison County Fairgrounds. That's approximately 1.2 miles south of the proposed site. The proposed site is shown with a star on this map. So Shelby, the existing site to the south, that site has recently been upgraded with 5G. And then the other site to the north, we call the Zeus site, that's 2.25 miles to the northeast. That will be upgraded with 5G this year. And so the one in the middle that we're proposing, called Madison Downtown, that one will cover the town of Madison and neighboring roads while offloading traffic from those two existing sites. So as you can see, the distance between the new one and Shelby is only 1.2 miles. The distance between the new one and Zeus is 2.25 miles. So that's a little bit shorter than the 2 to 3 miles that you would see for 4G service. So that is needed for the 5G service at that higher wavelength. I hope that's responsive to the question, but we're happy to take any more questions.
Yeah, thank you. I do have a question. This one will have 4 antennas, correct? Or space for 4 antennas?
Space for, could we turn to that elevation? I can't remember if it's 4 or 5. You may be looking at the.
I'm looking at the diagram.
Diagram, okay.
Alan, I think it's, I don't know what page it is, 48 maybe?
There it is. Right.
Okay. Just question for, I guess, in our future, would Verizon sell those spots to competitors, or would we potentially have a competitor come and propose a tower at another location in Madison?
Yes, so the Verizon will actually, in this case, be a lessee from the Towers LLC, which will develop, construct, and manage this tower. And so Verizon will be at that top location where the antenna array is shown. Those other 3 antenna locations, other providers could apply to the Towers LLC to co-locate on this tower. And so that would be a sublease rather, managed between the towers and that other wireless provider.
Okay, I was wondering if we just have a slew of these applications come in from work construction, but I think that answers it pretty clearly. One other thing that came up in discussion with a few members, first right of refusal for public use or public service or emergency broadcasting, anything like that, how does that typically work with one of these tower contracts, or I guess one of the antenna spots? Do y'all usually keep one open for, I guess speaking from the towers, not from Verizon, but for emergency, should something come up in the future where the county or the city or the state may need it?
I've seen that in the past. It hasn't come up with this particular one, so we haven't discussed it. I don't know what the answer would be. We can raise it with the towers. It would have to be, discussed up front to make sure the county has the rights that it's looking for.
Okay. More of a question, and I don't know, Carter, you want to get into it?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I asked that question of Brian Gordon, and he said that the tower at Hoover Ridge would suffice, so we don't really need a spot on this particular tower.
Mr. Chairman,
Is the tower at Hoover dedicated to emergency services only?
Well, it has yes. I guess that's
if I
the
can
answer.
chime in there are spots on that
Right.
tower where private entities could co-locate
Correct.
service. The applicant did analyze that location to see if it would serve their needs prior to submitting their application. So in a pre-application meeting, they became aware of that site because it was not coming up in however they register these. And so they got the engineering specs for it and looked at it, and it did not serve their purpose. And to Mr. Chairman's point about co-locating, there is a section in the ordinance in how we permit new towers to be built. In the order of preference by the county, we want them attached, co-located. We want them to mitigate other existing ones to be concealed. And then our last choice is non-concealed in the alternatives. And so the applicant has addressed these.
Perfect, yep. I knew you'd have the answer. That's all the questions that I have. Any further questions for the applicant? I'm getting off easy.
Thanks very much.
And Mr. Nichols will have, the details on the final, or the next meeting in the process. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public.
Public comment before we move to the next case. All right, seeing none. All right, we'll move on to the next case, case number RZ-02-26-01, Bella Rain LLC. This is the first workshop for rezoning. Jed Hostetler, on behalf of Bella Rain LLC, has requested to rezone a portion of the parcel identified as Madison County Tax Map 56-5A on Shelby Road from A1 to A1-R1. It's be a split zone. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow future home sites on approximately 24 acres of the 67.7 acre parcel. Mr. Nichols?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So this particular site is directly across from the transfer station on Shelby Road. The parcel that is subject to this application was subdivided in the last 12 months off of its parent parcel. So as it is agriculturally zoned, there are only 2 division rights remaining at this point. The applicant is a home builder and is seeking to have some inventory for coming years. If you look in your packet here, there is a plat from the subdivision in which the line has been illustrated where the rezoning is being applied for, which is the 24 acres to the south of the line up there on the screen. And that would, of course, enable the applicant to have more division rights. The applicant is here tonight, and I'm sure he'll be happy to field your questions unless you have other things for me.
Are there any questions for Mr. Nichols before we let the applicant come up and speak? All right, seeing none. Would the applicant like to come up and address and please just state your name and where you're in the county.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to present a proposal. I know many of you here tonight, but not all of you, so I'll just give a quick introduction. My name is Jet Hostetler. I'm the owner of Jetstone Builders. I'm a 3rd-generation builder here in Madison. My grandfather, Samuel Hostetler, was a builder here in the 80s, and I have several uncles who have been builders throughout the years here. So I guess I'm 3rd generation. My family lives in the Arota area, and brought my kids tonight to learn about the process. And so yeah, because I'm a builder, That's why I'm here tonight. As Alan stated, the proposal is to rezone a portion of tax map 56.5A. It's currently 67 acres. The proposal is to rezone the front 24, which will allow for the creation of 9 new building sites. So if you are pulling out of a transfer station or the animal shelter there, this parcel mirrors almost identical to the transfer station and the animal shelter. Actually, the fence that is in front of the transfer station and the animal shelter, that chain link fence almost mirrors our road frontage. We have approximately 850 feet of road frontage there. With the rezone, that would allow for 9 new residential lots. VDOT allows 5 residential homes per entrance. So we would have 1 entrance with 5, 1 entrance with 4, with the residual lot in the back, which would be 43 approximately acres. That would stay A1, would be accessed by one of the entrances. Because of the 850 feet, and it is relatively flat through there, so as you know, there's nothing flat in Madison County, but that section in front of the transfer station is very flat as far as road-wise, so we'd have no trouble meeting VDOT's requirements for site distance. The posted speed limit is 45 miles an hour. And with the 850 feet of road frontage, we'd be able to space the entrances, you know, at a good distance to create, you know, a nice profile going into the property. There is a small cemetery on this property. As you can see, it is approximately 200 feet from the parcel on the right. I've been by it a couple of times. It's obvious nobody is looking after it or accessing it. My understanding, per Virginia code, we are required to have a access point for the cemetery, not a road, but an access point. If this proposal would be approved, one of the entrances would go relatively close by the cemetery, and we would have an access point. You know, so if somebody wanted to stop in and visit the cemetery, they could without any trouble. But as of right now, it's overgrown. There's nothing really happening there at this point. Also, if the proposal would be approved, my family also owns a larger piece to the right. We would do a boundary line adjustment of approximately 1 to 2 acres that would go right to the edge of the cemetery and then back out to Shelby Road, which would put the cemetery on the larger parcel. That way, none of the new lots would have a cemetery on them or have to, you know, deal with it in any way. That way, it would be on the larger parcel and would stay over there. The soil, as far as shrink swell zone, we're not in any of the bad soil areas, so none of the foundations would need to have any engineering. We've done a little bit of preliminary soil work for drain field, et cetera. Everything has come back excellent. But we obviously haven't tested the entire site. So I think that is pretty much all I have.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. So if you use the 800-foot out front and you got 5 on one and 4 on the other, what are you using for right-of-way to get to the rest,
To the back?
to the back?
So one would have 5, and then the one that has 4 would also continue all the way to the back, and that would be the 5th. So the residual parcel in the back would be considered the 5th site, so to speak.
Okay, so the one that has 4, and if you take that to a right-of-way to the back for the 5th, then the most you could put back in the back would be 1,
Correct, correct. And that would stay A1, yeah,
okay? Without a boundary adjustment.
correct.
And just curious on the cemetery, y'all just gonna kind of do like a keyhole to include that, or will it be a bigger boundary line adjustment request?
Yeah, so the terrain, obviously, once again, this 24-acre parcel is not flat. And that's part of the reason why the target number is 9. Depending on what we find, because there are some rocky areas, it could be less than that. It could end up being 6 or 7. And so depending on the lay of, what's gonna look aesthetically pleasing, if the line might come a little bit of an angle off of the side parcel, or it may come, kind of square at a 90 and then back out. We would try to create it so that it, it looks good on the map, so to speak, and also work well in creating, nice looking, lots. Something that's not all cut up, so to speak.
And I'm guessing it won't, will there be a road maintenance agreement with the larger parcel and this one? Would the road go through that keyhole, or would y'all have to?
It would go right beside it.
Beside it,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we're hoping to not have anything on the larger parcel.
Okay, easement included or?
Correct.
or-
We're hoping to
or-
have everything on the, the existing.
Any other questions for Mr. Nichols?
Mr. Chairman, I know in the past, when we looked at rezoning something like this, it had to be consistent with another R1 zoning. The closest R1 zoning is up near Shelby, is that correct? It's A1 zoning all the way around your property now, correct?
Yeah, I'm looking at the map and yes. Yeah, so the yellow, right, is that the R1, Alan?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
subdivision there.
Yes, sir.
At Shelby.
It's in relatively close proximity to existing R1 now. It's certainly residential use almost entirely to the west, all the way to 29.
And staff sees no issue with that as it lies?
I mean, you're about a quarter of a mile away from the existing R1. So if you're asking my opinion, then no, I don't have any problem with it. It seems reasonable.
Additional questions on this one? Pretty straightforward.
How do we go about making sure the, like, drain fields, because I know this whole strip is right along a ridge on that portion of Shelby. And how do we go about identifying whether our, like, the rock structure, the bedrock, like, the dump was, or the landfill was supposed to be a 100-year landfill, and I think we made it maybe 20 years. So my question would be, how do we determine kind of drain field, sewer, that kind of discussion and approval when it comes time to kind of break up these lots?
So all of the water supply and wastewater issues are regulated by VDH. So assuming that the application is approved and the applicant goes to develop these sites, he'll have to have a soil scientist evaluate the soil and what its characteristics are and design a drain field that appropriately meets the demands of the soil for the residential use. So the applicant will have to apply for each parcel, for each drain field. It's usually not a package deal because things change from parcel to parcel. And as for wells, in your packet, you'll find commentary from Emily Bourdon during
Yeah, I
the
read
preliminary
those.
development. Yeah, and so she said that while wells are being drilled deeper than they have been in the past, I mean, should they be approved, the applicant certainly has the right to pursue those, should he choose to.
Just,
Alan, are you aware of any regulation that would prohibit residential build-out like this next to a landfill because of environmental reasons or any contamination reasons?
I am not. I'm happy to look at that more. I've thought about other planning issues related to residential uses near the landfill. I will say that where this property is located. It's not like you're in the business end of the landfill, as it were.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to follow up on that and see if I can find anything else. But a cursory look did not reveal any regulations on that regard.
Right. Well, as we know, aquifers and water runs in a lot of places, and it'll run under the road and run in many places.
Understood.
And I think you've already done some preliminary soil testing, and I would assume that nothing has shown up, any type of contamination at this point.
Not any of the, or we tested the stuff, the dirt or the soil closest to the road, and that all came back good. We haven't done anything further back, but within a couple 100 feet of the road frontage, yeah, everything has been fine.
In one quick, is there an existing well on the property that's in use or functioning, or?
Not that I'm
that you're
aware
aware
of.
Okay.
I looked around the cemetery to see if I could find any old foundation, if there was an old building, because I love history and I was curious when we started looking at this property. And I've stomped around on it, and I haven't been able to find anything. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, how many plots is in the cemetery?
Oh, man, that's a good question.
Is it a single family cemetery?
No, there's multiple names. Some of them, it's like early 1900s. I think I saw a couple in the 1800s. It's probably 30 feet wide. Yeah, it's definitely, it's got like a heavy-duty iron, like picket fence around it that somebody put up planning to stay for 500 years, and it's still there. Yeah.
Any other thoughts or questions or comments while the applicant's here? All right, seeing none. Any public comment on this rezoning application? I don't see anybody online still, so. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the last public case, case number ZOA-02-26-26-02, Janine Jensen, use not provided for, SFR and B1, this is the first workshop. Evans Okerson, on behalf of property owner Janine Jensen, has applied for a use not provided for to convert a building that is currently being used as a business office into a residence on property identified as Madison County Tax Map 55-24, and further identified as 27 Jack Shop Road. The subject parcel is 3.567 acres GIS and is zoned at B1. The Madison County Code of Ordinances, Appendix 1, Article 8, does not allow a single-family detached residence in the B1 zoning district by right or by SUP. Madison County Code of Ordinances, Appendix 1, Article 14.7, allows for an application to be made for a use not provided for. After considering the application, the Planning Commission shall recommend to the Board of Supervisors to amend the ordinance to allow the use by right, to by SUP, rezone to allow the use, or deny the use. This one will be a fun one for the commission. So, Mr. Nichols, I'll let you dive a little deeper.
All right, so I will frame this for you the best I can. The applicant came in to see me. Here we go. And this is the Mad Arts building on Highway 29 near the southern end of the county. Most of us are familiar with it. Bring up more maps here in a minute. The primary building has the red roof here. The secondary building is here. It has been built, oh, don't quote me on the number of years, but I would say 10 to 20 years ago, something like that. Is that about right? Okay. And it was built as a storage building, so it has not previously been a single-family dwelling. The applicant would like to convert this building to a single-family dwelling for a family member who also works in some aspect of the business. So there is a tie to the business there. So here's where we run into a use not provided for. So in our business, that's a business zoning district, here we go, you can have, as a special use permit, an apartment house in an existing structure. And when we go to the definitions, it ties this directly to multifamily. You can have a apartment or a dwelling in the main business structure as a secondary use. the building in question is not the main structure. But say, or you can use a single-family dwelling if it was lawfully built prior to the date of the special use application. So it would have to be a non-conforming structure, because there would be no way to build one new otherwise. So you have the applicant asking for a single-family dwelling on a business-owned lot, and it's not something we currently allow. So that is the discussion at hand, is should you?
I'm wondering, should we debate this a little more up front, or just go ahead and let the applicant provide comment? Do y'all have any, I guess we'll just ask y'all directly, anything else you'd like to add or make comments about the property or kind of the goals or the objective of the request? Because I imagine there'll be lengthy debate on this one.
Okay, of course. My name is Evans Okerson. Good evening, everybody. I am the husband of Janine Jensen, who is the owner of the property, and the stepfather to Taylor Davis, who, is this on? Can you all hear me? Okay. Who would be inhabiting this building should we get approval from the county. At this point, we are just trying to make it so a young man can have a good start in life. And he does provide a service to both of the businesses that are currently operating out of Mad Arts, out of the property. Everything that we intend to do would be within current building codes, and anything that need to be upgraded, we obviously would do. And I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions for the applicant? Well,
I have one.
Yes, sir.
So all your existing buildings, are they on one drain field? They got separate drain fields? Would this new building have its own, or?
There are 2 drain fields, and this building at this point has its own drain field that was installed back in around 2011 or so.
So this drain field, is the gray house, is the gray building there, is that the one you're trying to convert?
It's brown, actually,
It's
sir.
just brown, okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
it's one past that. So this was designed for an office building, so is the drain field adequate size for a resident?
Yes, sir. I spoke to Mr. Hogue last week about this, who did the drain field design, and he said that this could meet the criteria for a 2-bedroom residence, as it is right now. He said we may have to possibly, it's right on the verge, convert to a low flush toilet. But other than that, that's really the only modification that would have to be done, if that was even needed to be done.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
and that was going to be my, you did speak to the OSC, Mr. Hogg, is that, and he came out and looked at it, is that, okay?
He did not come out this time.
He just had the
He's-
paperwork from,
We talked to him about doing the soil inspection as would be required by the health department that we learned about in the first meeting.
Point of privilege, Mr. Chairman. Should the applicant find a way to pursue this, he will have to apply for a change of use through his building application, which will involve an SAP, a safe and proper application through the health department. And so they will likely require an evaluation of the drain field to make sure that it's proper before he's allowed to proceed with that change of use. So that will happen by statute.
thank you. And you're aware of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The health department folks that were here during our initial meeting had mentioned that, and that's why I contacted Mr. Hogue.
Perfect.
While we're on the topic of water,
Yes, sir.
are both buildings, the main building, Mad Arts, is that, and the smaller building served by the same well? Or,
Yes, sir. One well serves both.
okay, and that's already in place?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Yep, of course.
get in on this?
Please.
So, Alan, if we look at 822, you go through that, and the last part of that, it says, "or a single-family detached dwelling, if such dwelling was lawfully built prior to the date of the special use application." Any particular reason why that doesn't work?
because it's not a single-family detached dwelling.
Was this, what was the original structure for this? What,
The original structure was for storage initially, and then it was converted into light business use after that. There was a florist in there, I believe initially, and then, since then, it's become the business office for the shed lot and also for my wife's company, Chesapeake and Hudson.
I mean, again, going back to the purpose of this one tonight, amend the ordinance to allow by, the use by right, SUP, or rezone to allow the use. I think we have to lean toward one of those. And I think, Mike, that's where you were going to, is hopefully to avoid it and just say that it.
Yeah.
I mean, and the, Mr. Nichols, correct me if I'm wrong, the word that's throwing us off is apartment and the multifamily, right? If those two words didn't
Yeah, I mean,
conflict with each
it
other.
seems counterintuitive to the point here, but if the gentleman had asked me to build, 2 units in that building, we probably would have applied for that, which seems silly that it's more density and it would be permitted. But the way the ordinance is written, it does not allow it. So the question stands, do you want to? Do you not? Do you want to do it by right or by SUP? So that is the question.
And I'll go ahead and open the can of worms. And Mike, I know you have some thoughts on this, and Jim as well, probably everybody. The definitions within our ordinances definitely need some scrubbing. I think this is probably one of the cases where some of our definitions, just the nuances of apartment and multifamily are going to cause us a little extra work. So knowing that, I mean, I personally think that amending the ordinance to allow the use by right is the appropriate way to go for this particular one, knowing that it's really just a nuance of a word that's preventing it from happening. That's where I'm leaning right now. But
Chairman?
Go ahead, Pete.
How many of these cases like this are we gonna run across? It's very, very few that I can think of here in the county that this is probably gonna happen. I'm not trying to say, I don't like what you said, but I think this particular case, in my opinion, a special use permit and get rid of it and it's done, because I think we're gonna change something that's really don't need to be changed, that we're not gonna see that much.
Thanks, Pete.
It's just
And-
an opinion.
Well, during PDRC, I think we discussed it, and we honestly couldn't come up with any other properties that probably fall into this currently, so it may be this one-off case.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, while the special use sounds intriguing, I don't think we can do that. If it's not listed as a special use, we have to change the ordinance to allow a special use and then grant the special use. Or she could wait until SB 454 passes, which is bound to happen, and then she can do it by right if it's multiple family.
And to your point about the current legislation coming, or potential legislation coming out of Richmond, I mean, if she wants to do multifamily right now, she could do it by right because it says apartment. So she's got the multifamily use 2 different avenues, so. Mr. Nichols, you.
Yeah,
If
I
it would
can-
be easier, we have more kids that need housing.
It may be.
So we can make it into multifamily if you'd like.
You jest.
I think their father would be appreciative. Because there is a second floor that I actually talked to Mr. Wilkes about years ago, converting that into an apartment above the office. So if that makes things easier.
If I could throw 2 things into the mix here. First of all, if the applicant chooses to pursue multiple units, then that's an SUP. We know what it is, and you could vote on it like any, or, to recommend what you want, like any other special use permit. It would not be a new use. However, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I read the bill coming through about the residential uses in B1, it was strictly multifamily. It was not a single-family unit being permitted by right. So then, as the application stands now, unless we choose to amend it, Take this application for a second and just put it to the side and think, do you want to allow single-family dwellings in the B1 district in general? Because that's really the question at hand. And if you want to do it case by case, then you do a special use permit. If you think that's okay all the time, then you recommend it by right. Or if you don't think it's okay, you say no.
I've got a question for you. I know we don't do the town, but the way shops grew at the turn of the century and in the town, the shop was on the ground floor and the owners lived above it.
Correct.
And depending upon last name, I guess it continues that way.
I mean, that is correct. And the ordinance does allow in main structures for an addition, but it's a unit to be there as it is now. It just doesn't permit a second detached dwelling. So are you proposing it should?
And Mr. Nichols, to your point about single-family, if, let's just say hypothetically, went down the, amending the ordinance, could we put in there proffers or language that states, one per or an acreage, or would it then go to, how would it be determined on how many single-family residences on a B1 property could it be?
Well, see, this is why it's important to consider the broader implications of the question. Because right now, there are no density requirements for number of dwellings per acre in B1 because it wasn't intended to be that way, only as an accessory use, in an existing dwelling, because like Mr. Smith said, somebody would build their building to have their business in, and then they would live upstairs, because you can't always afford to do both. And, it's been that way. There's a long, long history of doing that. But it merits consideration of, if you choose to recommend a single-family dwelling by right, then you should be prepared to write a host of provisions or tie it to the provisions of another district and how that's arranged. If you choose to do it by special use permit, then you would hear it on a case-by-case basis, whether you thought something was appropriate or not. Because if you issued it for one home, unless you specifically said that somebody could build a second one as a part of that permit, they'd have to come back to you each time they wanted to add another one and ask.
So let me get back to the point of the term apartment and multifamily. If we update some of the language that probably does need to be updated, would that have repercussions or a domino effect back to this one?
It absolutely would.
Yeah.
I've got, if I might, Mr. Chairman, the other way to do it would be to keep this as an SUP. And if we look at 821, you say apartment house or single apartment in existing structures only, and then that would allow this by SUP. It might just be a way to avoid a larger, Pandora's box of things, unless, we want to take another deliberate approach to the zoning overhaul, that's fine too.
And then what we'd have to go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
No, I agree with Pete. You're not going to get a whole lot of these cases. But making this a by right comes with multiple other issues down the road and gets rid of basic zoning. It has to be a case by case, and Hannon's solution is a very, very easy way to go about it. The other recommendation is do your multifamily and be done with it, and that'd be a very easy SUP to just proceed with. I think on this one, though, since it is single family, go with his definition, do an ordinance change, and then go from there on an SUP, and it's fairly seamless. And it doesn't affect other zoning districts across the board.
And so then the ordinance change language, I guess, Hannah, would we then have to define, what did you call it, single apartment? Would we have to put that in the definition of what a single
I
apartment is?
think in the spirit of what the procedural ordinance tells you to do is that you would be making a recommendation that you would, be allowing this by special use, and the method you're going to do that would be to alter the definition.
Okay.
And you would presumably hear that concurrently along with the gentleman's application, so he doesn't have to table something or wait longer to do his project, or at least to have an answer on whether he can or cannot do his project. So if that's the way you want to proceed, I would prepare a red line definition to be, in accordance with what you asked me to put together, and then we would advertise that alongside with the gentleman's application for the special use permit.
Could
Or
it be further restricted for Structures in existence as of a date certain.
That seems reasonable. You're not building something for it.
Well, I think that would be whenever the ordinance is amended, your existing structures would be allowed for. I mean, I guess if somebody was really worried about this and savvy, they could run out and build a structure before it gets passed and they'd be in, but again, I think the risk of that is minimal. And then to your question about, do we have to define it? I would say it's optional. If there's no definition, then, you know, statutes and ordinance are given their plain and ordinary meanings, so you might not even have to. We could look at that as part of this, though.
Could
Pete?
you, excuse me, could we just change the definition of apartment house? Because apartment house says C dwelling multifamily. You could say, because I know of a single-bedroom apartment. Why does an apartment have to be multifamily? I mean, I know I've had plenty of apartments that was a single bedroom. So if we just wrote apartment house, C dwelling, single family, and multifamily.
If
and
I
then
may,
that would cure everything.
if I may respond to your comment,
Sure.
Mr. Schneider, I would prefer, and there's a reason for this coming up, prefer to replace apartment and apartment house entirely with dwelling unit. And because we're going to tie into other definitions for development and housing in our ordinance revisions coming up in the case hereafter. But I'm sure there's an avenue to adjust this, should we choose.
You done, Mr. Schneider?
Sorry?
Did that wrap up your question, Mr. Chairman? And Mr. Nichols, that's what I was looking at, was 21-69 dwelling unit, which kind of seems to be the appropriate placeholder apartment, whatever the apartment dwelling thing, doesn't really even have its own definition. It just references back to another definition, which doesn't really seem to reference back to the appropriate definition, in my opinion, anyway. So.
Well, if we can put a pin in this for just a second, when we get to R3, I've got a whole bunch of recommendations for changes of definitions, which will tie into this exact issue that we're having here. And we can discuss the nuances of dwelling unit and dwellings and what they mean, because we definitely should be adjusting some definitions for that case coming up. But yes, there is definitely clarity to be had or needed in the definitions.
So on this particular case, and since the applicants are here and they're anxious for an answer, we owe them one, consensus then to follow Hannon's guidance on the language and.
I think, sorry, I think.
You got yourself in trouble, didn't you?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think maybe Alan's going to say, let's not rush to that language, but maybe the consensus seems to be,
Amend.
we're going to allow this by SUP. I don't want to overstep where I'm at. I'm thinking, I'm just trying to take the temperature here, is that we're going to allow this by SUP. We're going to figure out the language to do it. I think that's sort of
Yeah.
where we're at.
And I would agree with that. I mean, and also, we need to keep in mind the spirit of the B1 zone anyway, because this is incidental. Obviously, special use permit language would probably need to be the best way to go. But I would say, I would be inclined what you guys are talking about.
That's a good point too on the B1.
If I may offer a question, so if we're going to structure this like a special use permit, then it brings me back to the criteria of issuance of special use permits, reasonable conditions and what have you. Since this is in a business zoning district, which is atypical for a detached single-family dwelling, would the Planning Commission see it reasonable that the use go with the applicant and not transfer with the land to perpetuate this use
I would agree.
when we structure a permit for this one? Or do you want to see this go on and be transferable?
My only thought to that is if it does change, the house is going to be converted to a house, and they could potentially have whoever, if it's sold down the road, rent that as an apartment. It's going to be, I mean, they're going to put a lot of money into a house to make it a livable space, so I don't know.
I mean, that's fine, I'm just prompting the questions of what the broader implications are.
The thing you gotta think about in the future, if they decide to sell this and they got a house there, are we taking away some of his property rights or livelihood that he could possibly make off of this by saying, no, it's no good now, he's selling, doesn't transfer with it? I think it should go with the property, that's my opinion.
Okay?
Yeah, it's gotta go with the property.
Okay. All right, so then it looks like consensus from the panel at least is special use permit with a little bit of work on amending the ordinance language. Everyone feels that that's appropriate. To the applicant, does this making sense as much as it can from our discussion?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay, and you feel comfortable going that route?
Yes, sir.
Are there further questions for Mr. Nichols? Go ahead, I think you have something.
Yeah, just thinking procedurally on where we're going to redline this thing. I've got to look at the timing, and I will here in a minute for advertising, because what I'd like to do is, at our joint meeting coming up, maybe present the language to see if you all like it before we advertise it for a public hearing, and depending on the timing, and I think we've got room to squeeze it in there and make it line up to where we can stay on schedule for the gentleman's public hearing. So, but I definitely want you all as a body to consider it before we advertise a change.
Okay. And so that'll be 2 weeks for us then, correct, just for the applicants?
Yeah, if something
So 2 weeks
changes,
for us.
we'll reach out. We'll figure it out.
Further questions for Alan, or I guess Hannon on this one as well? Questions for the applicant? Is there any public comment in the room on this one? Nothing, okay. All right, seeing none, then thank you very much, and Mr. Nichols will keep you updated on
Yes, sir.
progress.
And I realize you all probably get a lot of appreciation from the community for what you do. You don't need my thank yous, but thank you for what you do.
You're welcome, we're pleased to serve. Thank you. All right, moving on then, case number ZOA-02-26-01, amendment of R3 zoning ordinance and establishment of R4 zoning district. This is the first workshop. In accordance with direction given by Board of Supervisors, amendments have been proposed to Article 7 of the Madison County zoning ordinance for the purpose of preserving and clearly defining open space, clarifying and lowering density, and separating higher intensity development into new zoning district. Alan?
All right. Well, so the Board of Supervisors charged a few of us on the Economic Development Committee to look at R3 in response to the zoning text amendment we had from Mr. Esch, which let us bring up all kinds of review of the R3 ordinance, and we found a number of glaring holes. This revision seeks to close some of those holes. The first goal that we were looking at was how do we define open space, because it was not clearly defined in the previous ordinance, and we want to make sure that we are appropriately preserving the open space. We wanted to add language for ingress and egress for properties that had interior roads, because we did not want to see a one-way in, one-way out situation. We wanted to clarify what the density was and what that means. It was not terribly clear the way it was previously, and if we could lower the density in the district, we were seeking to do that. Additionally, we felt that with the other goals being stated, it became clear that we needed to split off the multifamily portion, or the higher density development, to its own district. The purpose of this is to make sure that if somebody wants to develop property with a bunch of new residences and bring a bunch of people here that will require services, that the board has the opportunity to hear proffers, to be able to hear applicants voluntarily put forward what they're going to do to offset the fiscal impact of their development. So that's the reason for creating a new district, because anymore, the only way that you can get any development fees or fiscal impact, offset from applicants is through a rezoning application. So we felt as we were looking at this thing that that's what was appropriate. Having said that, I understand that with some of the language in here that's changed, there have been questions brought up about some of the definitions and what the terms mean in here and why certain terms were removed, especially around townhomes. I have a very rough draft of definitions as we have them now versus where they should be for industry terms. And I have cited all of my sources on where we're pulling these definitions from, and I was not able to complete that to circulate for you tonight, but sometime over the next week or so, I'm going to circulate my cheat sheet over what is an attached home, what is a semi-detached home, what is a patio home, what is a duplex, just so that way we're all speaking the same language when we talk about these ordinances. I'll illustrate some of those things for our discussion tonight as we need to, but some of it I still need to iron out to put everything correct and have it appropriately cited, because I think it's critical that we get it right. Because when we correct R3 here, we probably have some cleanup to do with our other residential ordinances as well. So, having spoken entirely too much, your thoughts, please.
Chairman, I had a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Pete.
Mr. Wright, what is the state definition of open space?
I don't know that there is one, but I'll look, see if I can find one.
Well, my concern is open space is exactly what it is, open space. Means nothing on it. Is
Well-
that correct?
I'm not sure it is. I don't know, I mean, what if it's a playground?
I don't care about a playground.
Well, but you said nothing on it.
Oh, but a playground's fine. Where I'm going with this, this is where I'm headed with this.
Yeah.
Let's say I got a 100-acre parcel, okay? 40% of that 100 acres has to go into open space. But I see in here to where maybe if the county needed a school or rescue squad building or whatever, they could come in and build on that 40% of that open space. How do you come take my land from me and put something on it when you wouldn't let me do it? Open space is open space to me.
Are we buying that land from you?
It doesn't matter. It's gonna belong to the association at that point. How you gonna buy it from the association? That's gonna be tough to do.
Eminent domain.
It's a great question. I don't have a good answer for you, Pete. Happy to look
I
at
guess you
it.
could include like dedicated common areas, right, if you put it in the verbiage, right, that would include part of that open space. Because again, if technically, if you moved it one way or another, you really could construe that open space. But if you actually put in there, a dedicated common space as open space, right, which I've seen before, that may help some of that. Don't know.
And then the other question was with two entrances. Let's say you got a piece of property here in Madison, and you know how the property is cut up, been busted up, everything's happening, and you might have a 50-foot or 100-foot right-of-way coming off of a main highway, and that's the only access to that 100 acres of property, or 50 acres of property. So what do you do then? You can't build on it?
Can't build
Can I
as
take this
much.
one?
Sure.
No one's saying that you can't build on it, but you can't build on it with the provisions that are here. I mean, you could not rezone to R3. There's not that much of this property here now. So you wouldn't be able to have interior roads. Those requirements are for when you have interior roads, so you'd have lots of lots. They're a health and safety provision.
And this one's a pretty common one statewide.
It is, and you don't have to get very many homes before VDOT starts requiring you to have multiple entrances. The idea was that you couldn't just have one, because one way in, one way out is a common sense problem.
So we've got We've got,
It's tied to the VDOT standard.
Mr. Ish has 30 acres over there that's zoned R3 already, and he's got one way in and one way out.
No, sir, he does not.
He's got a right-of-way going in there.
He's got one on, for Mr. Esch's property, he's got one that comes off of that subdivision to the east. He has a 60-foot right-of-way to 29. I understand he's acquired property to come into another location on Fishback Road with provisions for a fourth. So he's covered. You're not hurting Mr. Esch's rights.
And Alan, I'm just thinking for tonight's discussion, do you want to go through each red line? And, I mean, I know all of us have read it
I
and
mean,
and done our homework.
I'm
but-
happy to do it by category, and we can dive in as much as you
Yeah.
want. You don't want to hear me read all this stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, then we can keep
But,
the
yeah,
questions
let's go through-
bucketed for you for probably
Let's
easier.
go through core changes here, okay?
Perfect.
So instead of the R3 district being called multiple family, let's say we've moved it to medium density, because the idea is that we're going to create one for multifamily with different provisions. So with that, we rewrote the statement of intent of the district. So I'm assuming that you all, I'm going to go ahead and just make the assumption that you all have read all of these. So are there comments on the statement of intent? Okay. So we have taken the multifamily component of this, and we have moved it to a special use permit rather than a by right in this district. And the reason we did that was because we felt that it was appropriate to allow some duplexes and what have you, and duplexes, triplexes, and quadruplexes in this medium-density district, that might be appropriate. But what we didn't want to see was somebody take a large tract of land, like 100 acres, and then just build a bunch of quadruplexes all over it as a substitute for what would have been a more cohesive multifamily community. And we couldn't figure out a way to regulate that other than just case at a time. And so we moved it to a special use, so multifamily, you all would hear it. If somebody wants to build a triplex or a quad or a duplex, you know, this has not been a problem in the past, but if somebody came in and they wanted to build 50 of them, then that might be a different issue. So we made that a special use there. So do we have questions on multifamily being moved to a special use? All right. The items in blue are items that the board recently voted on to change at Mr. Esch's request. We felt it was important to leave those alone. Mr. Esch went through extensive amount of meetings and, you know, to prepare that and consider in front of the Planning Commission and the board. The board voted on it. We felt it was important to leave the items that were subject to Mr. Esch's application alone. Open space is a core area of the change. So we set up the open space provisions to say 40% of the total project area. And we set up what qualifying open space should be. We set up a guideline for ownership and maintenance. So a homeowners association or, you know, condo or similar entity could hold that. So the part that comes up about the future public use, I'd like to explain that a little bit. In using Mr. Elliott's example of a 100-acre parcel, where 40 of it's in open space, community stuff, walking path, playground, whatever, most of it open and untouched. The reason for the future public use provision of we cannot predict the future. And with the rise in popularity of conservation easements that are permanent and heavily restrict the use of land, it often causes problems for unanticipated needs. We cannot predict the future. We don't know what's coming. We don't know what the needs will be for communities, especially where you have dense housing. If you ever needed a fire department, needed a police department, an entity that we don't even know exists or is needed yet, there is some provision in there that doesn't make you go in front of a judge to be able to do a thing. So if the elected officials agree that there is a need to do a thing in a small portion of this property that serves the public good, I feel like that it's important that they be able to do that. And we're not reaching out from beyond the grave, so to speak, making decisions that affect others down the road and their needs. So, conversation on this portion.
Again, I get back to it, Mr. Nichols. You taking my property that I owned and not letting me use it, but somewhere down the road, you don't wanna use it.
Respectfully, you're entering into the agreement willingly at that point because you want to do a development. You want to do a 100-acre housing development. You put 40 of it in open space, and then those residents need something in the future. You can accommodate those residents. I don't see what's so hard about that.
It's real hard about that, me giving up 40 acres for you to use.
I never knew, well, I'll hold my comments.
I think it's probably similar to what Loudoun County's done, right? They, in a lot of their communities, because it's so dense, right? They have fire and rescue right in the local municipalities. Is that kind of where you're getting that from?
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at, is that should a need for that arise, or another need that we can't anticipate that is vital, there's an avenue to accomplish that. It should definitely be the exception rather than the rule. It's not like 40% and then we're, just expecting that we're going to put some service in there. That's not what we're saying at all. Something unanticipated that may arise in the future.
I think what Pete's trying to get at, though, is kind of what different from what he's saying here, is that you've taken it away from the developer to begin with. And I've got to agree with Pete on this. I mean, if you're going to say that I can't build on it initially, that's my feelings as well. If you're going to say that I can't build on it and you're going to come back and take it later and you can build on it, I'm not.
It's something that may never come to pass, but it would be to serve the residents that are there, so the county's not taking anything.
I think the point of it making it open space is for it to be open space. It's so that nothing is to be built on there. It's like having an area that we're not going to be being built on. I mean, it's pretty simple, in my opinion.
There's an easy and unimaginative fix for that. We can't hear you. I said there is an easy and unimaginative fix for that, and that is to dedicate it into a conservation easement. But that hurts the community if you do it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Nichols, I have one question. So let's just say theoretically we've got a existing R3 parcel and this passes as proposed here. So let's say you've got 60 acres and it had public water and sewer. They could develop it. Like, would there be some special requirement and approval from the county for them to develop it at that acre per dwelling?
So, I mean, you'll need to submit a site plan that fulfills all the requirements of the ordinance, whether it be in the zoning district and the site plan ordinance.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So-
Now, to be fair, the requirements that are there now say open space at 40%. They just don't elaborate on what that is and what qualifies and what doesn't. So we're trying to establish that here. So the 40% open space requirement has not, in fact, changed. We're just defining what that means.
I understand, and that's good. It's good to do that. I do take issue also with what Pete has brought up. And it seems to be pretty clearly directed towards shall be labeled as permanent open space, and then saying basically, but, the county can use it for other things. And I think that's a really good idea, good forethought, but again, on the forethought side of things, could the county down the road maybe not look at purchasing land or instead take the easy path of saying, well, hey, we can use this land?
Of course.
When they, could
I'd say,
procure land in another way.
Of course they would. I hate the thought of us making a permanent change that decisions we make now means that nobody can change it later. I mean, even our Constitution has a method for change, should, the parties agree.
I agree, but, we're basically being told we don't want to make a permanent change, but it's basically saying it's permanent open space, and I think that's creating some issue in my interpretation.
Solve one problem, make another.
I'll complicate it a little bit more too, and I should have sent you this earlier, but I did some research on eminent domain and conservation easements, and there's been two in the last 2 years in North Carolina and in Florida where one county and one local municipality actually did win cases where they did eminent domain on conservation easements. I know we have public in here that represents one of the groups that issues those, but I mean, I think it can be, if we ever got into a pickle, eminent domain, never a fun word, but could be used in emergency cases. But I take 50-50 stance on kind of the comments here too. If there was a way to put language where, I mean, just make it not voluntary up front. We need a fire station, reserve an acre and whatever requirements are required for that construction, and then have it reserved. I don't know, I feel.
I don't think you can, we certainly cannot predict the future. And we can't reserve space on private property. It still would encumber the government to buy that private property in that 40%. The other component, the other one that comes to mind, I don't want to be modeling anything off of Loudoun County. I think they're a bad example of rural development. The side, though, I do think it should go in front of a judge. This kind of goes around eminent domain and gives a back door. I mean, a gas station could be for public good, just based on who is up here. It's a big component. It should go in front of a judge. Make them go through the court process. It shouldn't be just based on resolution to open up what was intended as continuing the way of life that Madison is at.
What do you mean by?
Putting in a back door that just says the government can do what they want on the
Oh.
40%, where the private sector cannot, is just
Oh,
that's contrary to,
I hear you.
yeah. What's the other side?
I just didn't, it sounded like you were inviting litigation, that's all.
Yeah.
I
Heck yes.
don't love it.
Absolutely. And the government should not have the government shouldn't have the easier way. Should be equitable on both sides.
All right. Is there a way to incentivize it, that you could nudge the developer? You know, for example, I think I saw, like Orange, for example, they would increase your allowed density if you created more open space. I mean, I don't know, there's other way, I don't mean to start
Yep,
doing
please.
notes now, I mean, but
That's why we're here.
I think there are some creative ways to try to figure out how to nudge developers into the things we want, or may need, if not want.
I'll use two examples, and I don't know if one of them's appropriate or not. Again, since Clay hates Loud, and he's really gonna hate Alexandria City. When the Trader Joe's came in there, and it was a big public hearing, they built a firehouse underneath the grocery store, and that's where the engines came out. But it was a public-private partnership in order to do it, based upon these conversations. I don't know if that type of language can be incentive, since we're using the word incentivize. But I also think, I'll look at all of our little post offices around here, like the one in Dyke. I mean, that's a public, I mean, there's ways to figure this out, right? Or to incentivize it, I mean.
Well, I
that's a
anticipate
boondoggle
that this
if I've ever-
provision is probably going to die. I will say that the point really was for something that you hadn't thought of, rather than something that you could, hear a proffer for now. I mean, I'm certainly sympathetic to Mr. Jackson's statements, and, while I just think it was to help for the unanticipated as much as something you could hear a proffer for. But anyway, whatever you all want to do, if you don't like it, we'll strike it. It'll be all right.
I think.
I agree with Mr. Jackson. I think if you want to take it, let's go to court and see if you can get it.
I think possibly we're trying for the perfect at the expense of the good. If we try to plan for every possible contingency in the future, there is the same thing we're doing as a way to deal with that, if you have to. If the county government finds that they need to do something, then they can go in changing what we're working with on the ordinance. But trying to plan for every contingency, especially when it's taking 40% of a property owner's land, is counterproductive. I know you want to try to plan for the future, but you can't plan for every possibility. Besides, there are 3 parcels that we have existing now are typically so small that you don't have a community that's going to need that kind of police or fire department or something.
Don't blame a guy for trying.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's your job, yeah.
Well, it's still open to eminent domain from the county.
Sure is.
Yeah, sure. Well, like Clay says, make them do it the right way.
It would still be open for eminent domain claims.
You know, Alan,
From the county.
I wasn't in for the earlier meetings, but what is the intent? I mean,
The 40%.
obviously, again, none of us want to be Loudoun County. Let me first bring that out. That is an example that we don't want to be, right? But I was just trying to figure out what we were trying to accomplish here, and doing the, making it an R3 and R4 zone. Obviously, something's come up in the past to generate this.
No, it's
And I'm
fine.
just trying to feel out why we were doing it.
We had a gentleman come through and apply for changes to the R3 ordinance. Those changes are highlighted in blue in the redlined version that's here. So as the Planning Commission and the board, but they were evaluating the R3 and the proposed changes, it came to light that there were not clear requirements for open space. And depending on how an engineer might interpret those, you may not actually get 40% open space. It might be considerably less because was it just impervious surfaces? Does the median of the highway count? You know, and so some of the stuff is being narrowly defined to make sure that you kept as much open space as you could. And wherever that falls, it should be clear to your developer and to your administrator when we do enforcement of these things, so that way everyone's on the same page when somebody goes to do a project. So that's the intent.
Thank you.
Mr. Nichols, can I push on that further? Can we talk about the timing and sensitivities and timing for this, since we're kind of going back and prefacing where this originated?
Timing for what?
For having the updated R3, R4?
Well, I mean, these things came to light and the board didn't want to let it linger. So we were given instructions to figure it out and to be prepared for an April public hearing, and so we have made strides to accomplish that.
You say on this?
Yeah, I'm still looking for April public hearing on it, yeah.
What about what we're discussing?
Oh, yeah, that clause, I can
Oh,
see, we should
striking
strike
that.
that. Just strike that and move on.
What
Well,
next?
I've already struck it
Yeah.
on my living document.
Moving on, let's keep going.
But for the,
We saw where that was going, it's okay.
but
All
we
right.
had a committee of 3. We had Jim and Alan and Jim Jewett that worked on this thing, okay, so.
All right. So, gentlemen, if we may moving on,
So, Alan, before you do move on, can you go back to 7.3, please? I mean, you've kind of, I sent
Sure.
in some stuff, and I don't know if anybody took a chance to look at any of it.
please.
Thank you. 7321. I've got in here, in my notes, you've got under 40% of total gross project area. Is that going to be the same thing as side area? Because that seems like we need to have a couple more of these definitions under site area and gross project area and.
Gross project area, and I can add this to the list of things that we define. I think the idea is that we're including multiple parcels. So if you are, as a part of your development, utilizing multiple parcels as a part of your site plan, we're talking about the whole thing. So we can create language in here as a definition to include that, or to clearly define that.
So
That's
is
a
that,
reason.
so I think somewhere back in 731, we have site area in that first sentence. We have 8 dwellings, 8 dwelling units per gross site area. So is that going to be site area, or is that going to be?
Where are you looking,
project
Mr.
area?
Snyder?
Sorry, 731.
731, okay. Four dwelling
See, this is why we have multiple eyes look at it, because we can clean it up.
I sent this into you. I didn't know if you had a chance to look at it.
I saw your definition concerns, and I was working on that. I have a rough draft, like I said, but based on what you sent, but we'll get it. 35 total. Poor gross site area.
So we're talking
Yeah,
about,
we'll-
once
we'll
again, that
work on
first
this.
sentence, we're talking about a gross acre of site area, and then we get down to 7321, and we're talking about gross project area. So we either need to, we need to say one and keep it the same one way or the other. It's either project area or site area, one or the other.
Happy to make that change. It's easy.
Thank you.
Actually, you're talking about two different things, though. Your project area, you're talking about a gross total. That's your 40 acres out of your 100. And your site area, you're talking about the individual sites, if I'm reading that correct. That means,
Per acre,
yeah,
or
it's
buildings.
either two
correct?
things
All
or
right.
not.
No, Mr. Carpenter's on it right here, Betsy. So your site area is your individual lots.
Yeah.
When we look at it, hard time looking at it sideways. I gotta look at it in front of me.
Yeah, that's, site area is all the lot areas.
That's
combined.
correct. So it's stated correctly because you're talking about the buildings covering 35% of the lot area there versus the total project for open space.
Yeah, in your gross total project, some of that open space in the site areas can be part of
No,
the
you-
40%.
You're on track. Looking at it straight on with you now. Further discussion?
Mr. Nichols, I'll just tell you a couple things I like about it. We can keep moving on. I was not really in favor of some of the R3 changes made through Mr. Esch's petition. I was close, but the 8,000 square feet was, less restrictive than what I was seeing in the surrounding counties, which drew some concern and a couple other things. Really glad to see you guys keep all that in there. I think it would be an injustice to him to have had him go through that process to then just change it so shortly after approval. So I really appreciate you guys sticking with that. And then also with the proposed creation of this R4, which again, I haven't largely been in favor of, but I'm just starting to look at it. I really do like the change to the 4 dwelling units per gross acre there in 7-3-1 to sort of limit that overall yield of the project and just kind of create a little less density, but still being able to, like cluster the units together and so anyway, I appreciate all those things and look forward to continuing to talk about this.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Alan, if you may, appease me, and go back to, because you moved through this first part pretty quick.
Oh.
Can you go back to 711, please? No, sorry, 713. So a semi-detached, single-family dwelling is, not a semi-detached dwelling has 2 buildings. So how can that be single-family?
It's not, but I'm glad you brought it up because I brought an illustration with me. Ha-ha, see, look, I'm being prepared. All right. So what you have in front of you is you have 4 homes, and if you look on the left here, you can see that each of these homes is on their own lot. Attached homes, an attached home is a home that is shared on 2 sides by a vertical wall with a neighboring property. A semi-detached home is one that shares 1 wall. This is straight out of the Book of Development Definitions, widely adopted in planning and zoning and development circles in real estate. Also tracks with what the Appraisal Institute publishes and more or less what the building code has to say. So we would call these townhomes. The difference is the interior units are attached The exterior units are semi-detached because they only share one wall. So what I would propose us to do in the future, and I've got columns here for what we have versus what I think they ought to be tying to other things, but I think that your townhouse definition should simply go to C, dwelling attached and dwelling semi-detached, because these are the terms used in development for these types of structures. So we can call them townhomes, but the interior ones are attached homes, the exterior ones are semi-detached. And this also plays in because you can have semi-detached homes that it's only 2 of them. Each one is owned by, they don't have to be held in common ownership. It's not necessarily a duplex because they could be independently owned in fee simple interest. A duplex would be 2 units on one lot, connected by a wall and do not share common utilities.
Do we
So-
need to change our definition because our definition
We
says
definitely
2
do.
lots?
We definitely do, and I've got some rough drafts going here for you. You're seeing my rough document that's not ready for publication yet. But this should follow really soon after, if not at the same time as the R3 and hopefully R4 amendments as you all see fit, because this will make everything line up. This will be ready for circulation, hopefully early next week. I'll have it all dialed in, but y'all can double check me. I'm citing my sources on it. But yeah, we're going to try to make our definitions line up with modern terms.
Mr. Chairman, I was reading here on 7.3.2.3, and it says ownership and maintenance. This is on the open space. Require open space shall be permanently protected. Shall is a powerful word.
Yes.
Other than the one sticky point. What's that? Roll on. Yeah. Further, I guess, give us structure on timing. So the next workshop will have,
Well, if I'm hearing the feedback correctly, we have struck the provision that allowed for a future public use. We're going to take that provision totally out.
I think that's pretty safe to say. I don't want to.
Yeah. Other than that, are we generally happy? Now, you can still send me a grammatical change, or you catch something that's, you need a hyphen somewhere. We can do that all the way up to public hearing. But are there any substantive changes that you all would like to see on this one now? Because if there are, it's the time to discuss it, because what'll happen next is I will advertise what we come up with tonight for a public hearing in April. And we can make small changes, but a substantive one would require us to re-advertise and kick the can down the road. We're
And I
trying
guess,
to avoid that.
let's ask the question, is everyone's okay with the R3, R4, the two different zoning?
We haven't gotten to R4 yet, just R3.
Usually you don't want to go, okay. R3 then, I think then just striking the one point on the,
So I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Why are we trying to push this so fast? I don't think we've got people beating the door down to do R3. Let's make sure we get it right, in my opinion.
and I mean, I think Mr. Nichols has done a pretty good job of getting structure in front of us, yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a directive from the board.
Right.
I mean, any further comment on?
Only if you have questions on items on R3, otherwise we'll move to the new R4.
All right, let's move.
I just have one question, sorry. Is there a reason why we left out short-term rentals in the R3 under special use permit?
So
It's
short-
under R1 and I think R2 as well.
Short-term rentals are regulated in another area of the ordinance. 20-160A is the provision there. Let me pull it up real quick and we'll look at it. In 2 seconds and I'll have it for you. And we'll see if I remember the number right. That'll be fun. Let's see. Yep, 20-160A. All right. Of course. 20-160A, okay. So, short-term rentals, as they are now, here's what the language says. Short-term rentals are a by right use in C1, A1, R1, and R2 districts. More than one shall be a special use permit in C1 and A1, but shall not be permitted in R1 and R2. So short-term rentals are not currently permitted in R3. Should you want to, it's a good time because it's a change we can make and we've got time to advertise. So it's a good time to have that discussion if you want to.
It's a revenue gainer.
It's for your peers, please discuss.
One question though on the R3, R4, this is a big assumption, so correct me if I'm wrong. Will most R3 and R4 have probably an HOA, which will also have right to vote down STRs, or is it?
Almost certainly.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I don't think many HOAs these days have appetite for STRs, but.
For those
Thoughts on adding it? Do we want to add language on STR, since it is, I mean, it is a growing thing in Madison? Yep. All right.
Couldn't, I don't want to open a can at all. I mean, it would seem like Airbnb, short-term rentals, whatever, would be better conversation to be talking about mixed use, which seems to be trending everywhere, and is certainly, I would hope, would be part of the one that we deleted, that we could talk about in the future. And that seems to be kind of go with like the village model and all the different aspects that we kind of do value. But that's not right on there right now, so let's not talk about that.
No puds, please. All right.
All right, R3, I think we're
Are you ready?
we're pleased. R4 we go.
All right, R4 we go.
Actually, Mr. Nichols, on this, do we want to do public comment? Because I know there's probably in between R3 and R4.
It's all one case, but sure, I mean, there's no reason we can't have a fluid discussion.
Let's open it to, no, we've exhausted the public, this is great. All right, moving on to R4 then.
All right. So in the spirit of, we moved multifamily to a special use in R3. We're making it here in R4 in its own district. Again, the purpose of this is to have the ability to hear proffers if anybody would like to do a dense development somewhere in Madison. We want to make sure that we can offset any potential development costs should the board choose to approve such a thing. So this is what I have for you. It's all whole cloth here. So I am open to discussion anywhere that you'd like to hear it.
Comments you got? You got comments on that?
No, I helped write it.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking your comments. I mean, good Lord, I think you're the man that did it. I mean, come on.
Mr. Chairman, this came about as a result of, and you've heard a lot about it, SB 974 from last year. We had two bills that Delegate Hamilton sponsored for us, one HB 535 and the other HB 536. 535 would merely have allowed us to have this planning commission act as the authorized or the designated agent to approve plans that came before it. That was tabled, laid gently on the table indefinitely. SB or HB 536 came on, that requested that we be able to charge impact fees. And the reason was pretty much born of what we dealt with on Mr. Esch's proposal, citing what the physical impact would be based upon our budget and sound and ordinary and and consistent principles that are used in planning. But now, with his SUP being granted, he just brings the plat before Alan, and if it's in the four corners of the ordinance, then it's approved, pure and simple, and we're toast. The Home Builders Association of Virginia actually had Ms. Hamilton's bill on their agenda list for defeat. And I'll tell you exactly what they said. They said was, they were denied the bill because it would add costs to home ownership. And they are following the mantra of the governor on affordability. So their view on the affordability here was that, I think that they were saying that the fees now are exceeding $15,000 to $25,000 per unit. It puts home-time buyers out of home ownership, and for that reason and those added costs, they were opposed to it. They did not deny the fact that the cost existed. They did not want the developer paying the cost. They did not want the sewer and water authority to absorb the cost. So who's left? The taxpayers. So they get stuck with the cost. So what we're doing with this with the multifamily R4 is merely recognizing the legitimacy of Pascal's divine wager. And that is, we know that we cannot get proffers on provisions. Now, we know that proffers can be collected through a rezoning. So the reason for this was to create a rezoning with the greater density and thereby be able to not stick the taxpayers in the county with the cost of development, which is actually where we'd be now. Similarly, we had a bill that went before the Senate that Senator Reeves proposed that was just dealing with the 20,000 again. That was the drafter of SB 974 was offended by the bill because he seemed to think that rural and urban counties had no difference whatsoever. I researched, we looked through the Census Bureau, it stratifies Virginia into three categories. It's mostly urban, mostly rural, and completely rural. And under that stratification of they had 69 of 119 localities. There were actually 133 localities, but the rurality was at 58%. When we went before the House of Delegates, the rural counties representation on the House, cities, counties, and town committee is 3 of 23, and there were no rural counties on the subcommittee that we were before. So that's 13% representation of rural counties in the House. On the Senate side, there were 3 of 15, or 20%. So the next thing to look at is how much money that the home builders gives out to both those counties, and it's a king's ransom, and their money is well spent. So we know that what we're going to have to do with the bills that are coming down the pike, and I'll send something out to everybody with our assessment of where they are. Crossover happened today. Alan and I have been together on Friday calls with the American Planning Association Virginia chapter with their lobbyists. We've tried to make terrible bills just horrible instead of terrible, and that's about all we've been able to do. But there's stuff coming down the pike, and we are really hosed if we don't take a proactive stance. That's what the multifamily R4 does.
Just to clarify, when you say hosed, we're zero oversight onto what could be developed?
Yeah, I
without
mean,
any-
there's going to be so much by right. 454 I mentioned earlier, that's, there is real difficulty in allowing by right in any commercial or business zone or industrial zone once you get houses in, then that's all you can put in right now. You're locked. The only thing you put in is residential beside it. There is a lot of issues, or a number of issues right now on setbacks and front, back, and side adjustments. There's another bill that will be passed this year, and it would allow, by right, multifamily dwellings aimed for low income on property owned by what they call faith-based 501c3 religious organizations. Fortunately, most churches have not gone through the expense to get C3 status, so you can block them because they don't have a determination letter. But those two things are going to pass in some form. We know the bills have been approved on both sides of the General Assembly. And there are others, some that would interest Pete on water and wastewater, what they'll be doing there. They realize that's a real impediment to affordable housing, so they're going to take it out of our back pockets by authorizing, and right now it's only by local election and decision, to use the local economic development commissions to help fund some of the costs and offset some of the water and wastewater costs.
Good times. I guess, Mr. Nichols, do you want to briefly run through the R4, again, knowing we've all read this, and touch on any, I guess, differences between the 3 and 4? I mean, 'cause I know they kind of mirror each other in the framework, but
I mean,
we're open it to questions.
There's nuanced difference here. I'll definitely strike the future public use provision that's here, given the hostile nature of the conversation. But no, and then there's, I think Mr. Jackson had one he was going to bring up, which is fine.
3-2.3, which is conveyance of the public of the open space to a conservation easement, or the last one's to Madison County. I don't think Madison County wants a responsibility of more open spaces. I think we've got one up in Middle River that we're trying to forget about constantly.
You want subject to acceptance, you can't.
Yeah, I just think that one's, I just don't think that's even, the county doesn't have the money to deal with any of that kind of thing.
Any discussion on that from the panel? Agreement?
I agree with
Okay. I think you got 2 strikes now on that one
So you're just, let's say you want to strike provision C there.
for Madison.
All of it, or just the Madison County?
No, just the Madison, or
So a public or qualified conservation entity is okay.
I think that this didn't quite follow what was in the other one there. Give me a second. I'd like to take 2 seconds and compare something really quick, because we're going to iron it out tonight.
Is that what we had in the other one, Alan?
Yeah, I thought I drew it straight from the other one and put it in here, but I'm looking at this thing and think I may have an inconsistency. So if you'll humor me for just a second while I look at this, we can iron it out. Because open space requirements. All right, so with Mr. Jackson's comments here, we'll notice that the same language that is, where are we? 3-2.3C. All right, so this same language that's here is present in both the
3 and
Article
4.
7 and this Article X. It's only Article X, I haven't figured out where we want to put it yet. But if we're going to strike Madison County as a conveyed to, then we'll just go ahead and do it for both of them if that suits everybody.
thank you.
All right, very good.
So that's also in 7323C.
Yes, it's the same on both.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Very good. All right, so with that
Great.
corrected, and we're going to strike the future public use here. Any other feedback on this one from the Planning Commission?
Any other?
So if I'm understanding this right, this is by special use permit.
This would be by rezoning.
Rezoning would be by special use permit.
No, sir. It's
Rezoning.
either a rezoning or it's a special use permit. So somebody would have to rezone property to R4, and then your by right uses are listed in the 1 section here. And then your special uses are, you know, illustrated down below. So if somebody rezoned, they could do any of the by right uses without asking this body. And of course, they'd have to apply for a special use permit for these section 2 uses. I mean, I hadn't written it that way, but we can. The only problem with mixed use in this one is that it would make for, like, some of the provisions that are coming through with the business bills and allowing multifamily and stuff like that, is that it prevents you from doing other functions adjacent to a residential zone. So there's some of that stuff I have to consider, but if you want to look at, if you want to look at mixed use in this, Betsy, I'll have to consider it a little bit more deeply, because with some of the state provisions coming out, there may be conflicts there and opening up things we don't want.
The only, Article 14, 16, the solar, what, is that, I should have looked at it. That's just, that permits it just to roof, right?
Yeah, this is roof mounted,
Okay,
and it could be for, you know, business or residential use essentially, but there's, you know, you're not doing utility
we're not doing it,
scale.
okay, okay.
Yeah, in this district.
Alan, in 7.3.
Steve, I see you speaking, but I can't hear you, sorry.
In 7.3.1, this is kind of picking up on what Mike picked up on earlier. We've now got per gross acre of site area, and then further in the sentence, we've introduced another term, 35% of the total lot area. So maybe just definitions here. We've got, now we have, between the two of them, we've got 3 specific gross project, gross site area, and gross lot area. So
All right, so
that may need clarifying or.
what I can do is, and I think that this would be a minor change and not a substantive one, but before I see you all next, I will either provide definitions of those things, or we will streamline those things to add clarity, but I'm happy to do that.
All right, any other?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Nichols and, well, Mr. Smith, I tried to follow along with everything you were saying earlier. I think I got most of it, but just a clarifying question for Mr. Nichols on these possible state mandates coming our way. So if we did not have an R4 zoning, we amended our R3 sort of as proposed, and a developer came to Madison, the bills passed that are proposed to pass, and a developer came to Madison, would some of these bills possibly allow them to build to a higher density than is existing in our revised R3?
I suspect that's coming.
Is that the concern?
Yep, and then what you're going to end up with is you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to apply it to an existing district, like a use not provided for, like we heard earlier tonight, and then you're not going to have an opportunity to hear voluntary proffers, and so you'll decide if you want to do it or deny it, maybe go through an appeal process if it's a state-pushed issue, and then you're going to be left holding the bag. So.
And they are proposing some metrics as minimal amount of affordable housing.
So you can decide where you want it, or you can wait for someone to tell you where it's going.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I've been kind of studying this a little bit as we've gone, especially from the comprehensive plan. The proponents of affordable housing now identify 2 problem sources: local zoning and building codes. And they're trying to blame the lack of affordable housing entirely on those 2 things. And that's what this legislature is doing right now. Yeah.
Let's let you build a shack wherever you want. Got it.
Okay.
Affordable.
And I've got,
Their idea of affordability pretty much matches their idea of fairness.
and Jim or Alan, question on the 5013Cs, and that one, I mean, how many churches do we have, church properties do we have here, and how many of them are actually several acres?
It's not the church properties you're going to worry about. It's the obscure organization that operates under the religious exemption that then decides they want to make some money and they can do what they want with the property they own.
So other than Nathan's cult out on his property, what other? Can we get? But what, do we need, because I hadn't heard that one yet. Are we addressing anything specific to that, or if it's state laws or anything we can do other than? Okay.
Yeah, those are pretty, they're
Sorry.
tying it into a constitutional protection.
Okay,
The multifamily and business is one that we can do something about, and there'll be more on that in the near future. I'm still unpacking some of that stuff, but we'll have a proposal in front of you soon on how to address that.
well, I'll give you kudos to everyone that authored this one. I know it's a lot of information, and we're getting ahead of a lot of things coming out of Richmond, so, sorry that a few things were shot down, but great work on this.
That's why it's not just one guy. What else would you like to talk about in this one, Mr. Chairman? Anything else?
Are there
for-
any other points on R4, or, I mean, everyone's clear on the purpose, right, with the R4 and the R?
I've got one more clarifying question. Sorry, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Nichols. I thought I understood again, and you had said yes, but then said otherwise. The proposal would come before the planning commission, and we would address it, and it would either be a use not provided for, and we would make our decisions based on that. So, again, just as a clarifying question, if we had no R4, and somebody came with a large proposal, large-scale project like this, would we have the right, if these bills passed, to turn down that project or not?
General rule state, it passes right down to us. We are obligated by the state. Well,
No, I mean, they would have to comply with like site plans and.
The answer is,
Setbacks.
it depends.
Thank you.
We're just trying to get ahead of it as best we can. So, but say, could you deny it and have that stand? Maybe. It depends on if you got challenged and who heard it.
If I may interject, just my thought here, anyway. Where do we have this property that is already zoned for this to happen?
You don't.
We don't. So that's kind of like my point, is that if we don't have that already zoned for it to happen, we don't have to rezone it.
Well.
We can always turn down the rezone.
Exactly. You don't have to
So-
make it. But if you do want something, if somebody comes to you with something that makes sense, I've got a 7-acre parcel and I want to put, whatever, 20 apartments on it, and we think that makes sense, sure, you have an opportunity to hear proffers if you want to hear proffers. You've got an avenue to do that thing. But it's certainly within the board's prerogative to say, no, we don't want it. It's okay. And I suspect that some of those, with the newfound capacity, or imminent capacity, I should say, from our public utility provider for water and sewer, I think we're going to hear some more of those applications. I think that there's a couple of individuals that would like to make some apartments or make some attached housing. And so you'll hear that. So let's give them an opportunity to offer some proffers while we're at it. Or, you have another avenue if you want.
All right, final,
One thing it's clear we don't want to do, though, is just to create a commercial zone up and down our business quarter. Because once you zone that commercial, anybody can come in and throw in high-density housing by right.
Yeah, but you don't want to do that.
all right, before we go to public comment, any final R3, R4 points? And then I guess we'll have revisions out soon, and again, I'll
Yeah,
urge everyone to.
give me a couple days, I'll publish you an updated draft. It might take me just a second, because I do want to
Sure.
address Mr. Schneider and Mr. Carpenter's concerns about the undefined terms in here, those three. And so we'll tighten that up, and then we will, I'll get it out to you. Also figure out what article that this multifamily is going to go in, so that way I can stop calling it Article X.
Okay. All right, then, public comment, is there any? It was good? It was good? I don't think anyone's online now. All right, then we'll put R3, R4 to bed.
Yep, a riveting live stream tonight, no doubt.
What's that?
A riveting live stream tonight, no doubt.
Well, next one is also going to be the proposed revision of Planning Commission bylaws. We need to vote on the text on this one, which is at the bottom of the draft. I mean, it's Article 2, members, 2-1, the Planning Commission shall consist, where we struck it last week, or last month for discussion, was up to 8 members to 5 to 15 members as determined by and appointed by the Board of Supervisors. So this one, formal vote on this one, we need it for the, yeah. Our discussion first, and if not, does anyone move to adopt the? So moved. All right, the motion has been made and seconded to adopt the amended language.
Mr. Chairman, who made the second?
Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you.
To adopt the language, 5 to 15 members as determined by and appointed by the Board of Supervisors to Article 2-1. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Are there any opposed? Nay. Two nays? Cowan was nay, and Mr. Elliott, aye for the chairman. That's good enough for a pass? Okay. That'll do. That'll do. All right, I think that is it for new business, information, correspondence, and upcoming items. Mr. Nichols?
All right, real quick, let's say we've got in a couple weeks, public hearing for the Towers LLC. We will do, let's see here. So the rest of our R3, we're going to advertise for an April public hearing, unless you all tell me not to right now. And we'll get you the draft here in the next few days on the changes for you to look at. Second workshop coming up for Bella Rain LLC, so we'll look forward to hearing that one. For the Janine Jensen, I will get you language by the joint meeting for how we're going to handle the definition on that, and then we'll proceed as a normal SUP for a second workshop coming up in March. I've got the home occupation rule surfaces ordinance still in subcommittee, and that's what I've got for you, Mr. Chairman.
And clarification on that, when we did meet last week and we have some notes, and then Mr. Smith added some additional notes to that today, so I'll send you a write-up and we'll publish that to everybody. I'll get it to you this week. One question on the amendment R3 zoning, R4. Can we help you with the definitions? Because I know you said concurrently with the definitions or definitions soon thereafter. Is there anything we can do to help you to get?
I'm happy to do it. I'm just going to reference the materials that exist.
Okay.
From our usual publications, we'll use Building Code, Appraisal Institute, APA, all these people that, are authorities on this matter. We're not going to make anything whole cloth, but if you have things you'd like, please send them to me. Okay. There's no pride in authorship here. Just send me what you want to see. We'll look at it.
All right, are there any other items from members? General public comment before we? All right, is there a motion to adjourn? All right, a motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All right, no nays.